Good evening, guys. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Let's take a look and see what's going on with Bitcoin for the day and for the week. So for the day, you had a very bearish close, right? You have a negative 1885 candle here. So you closed $1,885 below the open. Definitely a very bearish sign. That's almost a 3% drop for a bigger asset. So definitely a pretty decent sized drop. Your next candle, unfortunately, is starting out with a pump. It has no tail on it, so this does not have a tail on it just yet. Not a great sign for the bulls because we know that usually when there is a bearish candle, you will pump first and then dump. And for a bullish candle, you will dump first, making the tail, and then pump. So we're getting the bearish candle formation here on the daily, but not a great sign. Weekly, you know so far losing that 63,527, that's going to be an extremely important area for us to regain over the weekend. If we cannot regain that, there is a good possibility that the next weekly candle will be a further continuation move to the downside. I will say that. I would basically be expecting, if that were to happen, getting into this range, which with the range I've been eyeing, 60,600 to 61,000 basically. I'm still going to keep eyeing this range because there's a lot of liquidity here. Now, the one thing that I will say, and this is a very big argument for the bulls, is that on your daily, you did take out a double bottom right here from, basically Friday, July 17th and Tuesday, July 28th. This formed a double bottom. We wiped it out. Okay. So there is a potential that that is enough liquidity that we took out that we're going to get the move back up. Not to say it's a guarantee, but there's a possibility that that's the case. Okay. And ideally for the bulls, what I would like to see for this week is getting back in between this range right here, between 63,600 and 63,940. We don't have to go further than that. I just want to see us getting back above the weekly 200 and consolidating in this area. That's all I want to see for this weekend. Okay. We're very close to it. We're at 62,938, so we're only about, less than $700 away from the bottom of it. But that's what I'm going to be looking for over the weekend. Okay, I don't trade weekends. I don't want to see expansive moves over the weekend, but I would like to see a recovery into this area. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the 12 hour. So the 12 hour kind of showing some moving averages getting tight. We still have the 200 very far away though, so nothing major with that yet. That's going to take a long time to get back into price action. Let's take a look at the 10 hour and the 8 hour. So these are the two time frames, honestly, guys, that are still making me lean somewhat bullish for August. The 8 hour and the 10 hour are bundling up their moving averages. We don't see that, very often. I mean, the last time, was right around here, back in May, where we had the dump to the downside, right? These all kind of came together, kind of got tight. If I zoom out or zoom in, yeah, basically zoom out, right? And you can basically see how these moving averages got tight, and we got that massive continuation down, from basically our high of 82,000-ish, right? So this is playing out the other direction. This would be for a pump. And like I tell you guys, the market makers, they can't hide everything from you forever. So at one point, this could get a massive move up, right? This could basically get a massive expansive move up. Um, this is the one thing. These two time frames are the one thing that's making me more bullish and bearish because of these tight moving averages. And another thing that's huge for me is obviously on the bigger time frames, even like your smaller macro time frames, your daily, you took out a double bottom. That's basically a couple of weeks old, right? Started forming a couple of weeks ago. So to me, that does provide a case for the bulls. Okay. Now from a timing perspective, it's not great. The reason being is because, obviously, if we're going to have a bullish month for August, we want to see a dump first. So that would have to happen, or more than likely, probability wise, need to happen next week to get a bigger expansive move upward. So definitely, there's a potential we could see this next week. But I also want you to keep in mind that there's a possibility, even the first 1 to 2 weeks of August, we could expand upwards, even to the point of 69,317 area or 70,000, and then get rejected and come all the way back down and visit this area or lower. So that's another possibility. August could also be bearish, but we might have to make that expansive move up first because of the 8 hour and the 10 hour. It's really going to depend on what the monthly has in store. Okay. So those are some thoughts to keep in the back of your head. And this is kind of what I'm thinking when it comes to timing, when it comes to moving averages. I don't put a lot of weight on indicators, but I just can't ignore the fact that when these get so tight, we don't get the follow through. You know what I mean? So that is something I'm going to be watching very closely. Obviously, the 6 hour, the 4 hour don't look great. You lost the 200. I get it, but there's a potential that somehow, some way, we can get that move back up, even over the weekend. I don't know if there's going to be a piece of news. I'm not going to try to speculate on why. I'm just saying there is a possibility that we don't do a continuation and we get the move back up for right now. One thing I want to leave you with is this when it comes to these charts, okay? Yeah, we'll get into the 1 hour and the 15 minute. There, I mean, really, there's nothing too much to get into. The only thing that I saw, honestly, on the 15 minute is I believe I saw a bullish 786. So if you pull from this wick, was it this wick to this high? No, it was this next one. Kind of have to cherry pick it, but it is there. You got this double bottom, unfortunately, but it could potentially reverse price. You might have to dig a little bit deeper. This could be the tail. So if you dug into 62,756, wiped out this double bottom, and then took off, another potential possibility. Not going to put too much weight on the 786 though because it is happening after hours. Not the best time to trade it. It's not during the week. I'm not putting a lot of weight into that. Anyways, guys, what I was going to say is that I want you guys to think that when it comes to my style of trading, and what I want all of you to sometimes think about is what are people doing, right? What is your average retail trader doing in this market? Do you think that they have a lot of faith in the pump up? I personally don't think so. Now, there's some that are trying to catch the bottom always. I get it. But a lot of people are going to be chasing the move down. And they're thinking that any sort of flag that forms is going to be a bear flag. I mean, you could call this a bear flag potentially, even though we're probably going to break out to the upside, right? They're going to look for any possible way to see some type of bearish continuation. The reason why probability wise it's not probably going to happen for them is because usually on Friday is where at the very most you look for your bottom for the week, and you usually get a small continuation up. Saturday and Sunday don't usually form the bottom of the week, on average. You can backtest that, go take a look and see for yourself, but a lot of people are going to want to chase this short, and the market will probably reverse and get them wrecked. Okay? So part of this is psychology I want you guys to think about before, again, never financial advice, but before entering trades, I want you to somewhat think reverse of the crowd. Think of what people are not looking for, right? Obviously, the market can only go one of two ways. But in my opinion, with this looks like something that, if I were to see this and be a retail trader, I'd be like, oh, cool, I'm going to try to short this because I think it's going to be a continuation down. That's not what we're doing here. We want to look for any sort of sign of reversal. I am always trying to look to counter trade the audience. Okay, that is my trading style. So for me, when I see a bear flag in a discount zone, when I know we just took out a double bottom, I'm thinking, oh good, I can long this, right? Even though I'm not going to because it's the weekend, but that's my mindset. Okay. And that's what I'm trying to attempt to educate you guys on, what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing in the market, right? All right, that being said, guys, let's take a look at liquidity. Firstly, levels. So far as levels go, to the upside, I'm looking for a consolidation within 63,600 and 63,940, somewhere in here. Don't even have to get above our 200 MAs on these bigger time frames, just as long as we consolidate in this area for right now. Down below, if we were to lose this bottom right here, I would have to say that we visit this area, 60,622 to 61,124. This is basically the area I would be targeting down here. So those are some levels to the upside and to the downside. Let's take a look and see what is going on with liquidity. All right, so let me refresh this, and then we're also going to move to the 4 hour first. All right, so 4 hour, don't have really a bridge yet, right? We kind of took out, any bridge that was there, it got merged in. It's now part of this bigger pool. I would like to see some liquidity building up here, but I don't know if we're going to get it just yet. This is showing that we did dive into some of this yellow liquidity, possibly going to continue this down to this red area. We'll have to wait and see. Again, Friday is normally where we make the bottom of the week, so probability wise, the bottom is in for right now. And we're going to either chop around here or we're going to have a slow move up. Okay. Now, when Sunday, 5 o'clock hits, when the new weekly candle opens, that all of those rules are off the table. That means that we can dump because we have to make the tail for the week. That's off the table. I'm just saying for this current weekly candle, there's a good chance that this is our bottom for the week, especially because we took out a double bottom. I'm not going to get over that. We took out a double bottom, and there's a good chance that this is the bottom for the week. Okay. Nothing's for sure though, so keep that in mind. 1 hour time frame. So taking a look at the 1 hour time frame, you got some liquidity to bring you back up. Okay, and this target's about 63,576. So right around where I'm targeting for the potential move upward. And you can see if I uncheck the 50, you got this little bit of liquidity, you got a bridge right here, and then you have this whole area all the way back up here. So this is telling me that there's a potential. We do have enough liquidity to possibly even jump this gap and start getting it back into the 64 range, surprisingly. So there is a potential that this weekend we see a very violent move. Not that it's going to happen for sure, but just know that the potential is there. Okay, I don't want to see that happen, especially because we're going to start August as well. I never want to see expansive moves on the weekend because we know that that can be very dangerous for the remainder of the week. It can be very choppy, very seek and destroy-ish. But just know that that is a potential, okay? Now, your trend of indicator is telling you that both your 4 hour and your daily are bearish. Your daily is bearish at a -2, your 4 hour is bearish at a -3. But your actual 1 hour doesn't have any sort of bias right now, which is interesting. So the 1 hour is neutral, but the other two are pretty bearish. So let's take a look at the 15-minute finally, and then we'll compare our order book. So the 15-minute, this is very, very interesting. I mean, look at this bridge that we could even get even up into the 65K range. It almost begs the question, like, is there something that's going to happen over this weekend? Maybe make, like I said, that bullish 786. I would personally watch that 62.7-ish level to see if we can, maybe get a, yeah, look at that. Look at the liquidity right there, guys. Like right where my 786 is, perfectly. Look for some sort of bounce in here if we do have to get a retracement to see if we can maybe get that bridge up and just take off. I mean, that is a possibility, guys, especially because there are so many people in this market that are bearish right now. That would be very, very interesting. So I'm gonna be targeting that. Honestly, the only way that I'm gonna possibly play a move on a weekend is if I see my model happening and I know that there's a decent probability that it's gonna play out. Otherwise, I stay away from weekends like the plague. Okay, that's the only way that I'm going to possibly, you can even dive into this pool even, but the only way I'm gonna do something like play a weekend is if I see a big pool of liquidity taken, which obviously that double bottom was taken that I've been eyeing on the macro time frame. So there's a good chance that we get a 786 and just skyrocket up, potentially even back up, taking out this double top. So just be aware of that. Doesn't have to happen that way, but it makes me very, very interested. I am very interested in price action right now. I'm curious. Like this would be one of the weekends that we could possibly get a move up. So just kind of keep that in mind. Taking a look at our order book through open market, you have some down here at 61,350, 61,300. That could be used as support. You have one at 61.5. I'm just not seeing any orders really to drive price around. It's really just going to be, whoever is, a whale or a bot can just kind of manipulate this market this weekend, as of right now. Friday night, this can literally just go either way. This is kind of a gamble at this point. But that's, as far as like models go, that's what I would be potentially expecting if we were to get the bullish move back up, maybe wipe out the, a couple of these double bottoms here down to about 62.7 and then just lift off basically. If not, we get a rollover and we start taking out this red pool of liquidity, see if we can bounce from there, and then we just keep going, right? So either way is plausible in my opinion. Okay, so that being said, let's take a look at the simple map, see if we get any more clarity from this crazy market that we have right now. All right, so the simple map. To the downside, I would say that you basically have to pass 62,670. You can kind of get that follow through to about 62,370, and then you're going to find some resistance or sorry support there. Then to about 62,000 even, and then to about 61,770. So basically, some areas of potential support to the downside. I would say that for right now a good max target would potentially be around 62.3. As an expectation to the downside, you obviously have to get past 62,670 though. That's around where that 786 is. So there's a chance that we take out some of this 100x and then move on up. To the upside, you're gonna have to get above 63.3, then above 63.5. Again, lining up with my, close to my ranges, the bottom of those ranges, right? If you can get up above 63.5 though, there's a potential that you can just kind of fall through here, even all the way up potentially to about 64,650. So again, guys, I don't know if there's going to be any news this weekend, but there's a potential that we just kind of if we can get above 63.5, this tells me we can just kind of roll through all of this liquidity here and just get way back up to the upside, before about 64,650 before we're going to find an issue. Okay. So very, very interesting when it comes to liquidity. Some areas to target, and then usually, with your swing time frames or bigger time frames, they're kind of targeting the same thing. Getting past 62, 670, 62, 550, about 62.3 is where I would be targeting if I was looking for a move to the downside for a potential bounce, for a potential support area. And then obviously to the upside, getting above 63.3, 63.5, and then just being able to roll through all this liquidity is very interesting in my opinion. So just know there can be a very tricky move to the upside and be very careful with your stop losses. And if you are shorting, just be aware that there could be some sort of really crazy move up this weekend. Not sure if it's going to happen, but um, there's a model playing out, and it's usually my model. And I'm still going to debate whether or not to take it because it's a weekend, but I normally look for this, New York session during the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that type of thing. But just know that if it does play out, we get a strong rejection off of 62.7. That is going to be very, very interesting for the Bulls. Okay. All right, guys. That being said, that is all that I have for you for this evening. I will be back again tomorrow morning to give you guys a daily update for Saturday. I hope you all have a wonderful evening and take care. See you later.